Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Sarah Compton, and I'm going to be your moderator for today. Today, we're going to cover some financial trends and ways to transform your reporting. All right, let's get right into it. Quick agenda for today. Soon, we're going to meet our presenters. We're very excited to have Paul Barnhurst, the FP&A Guy, join us today, as well as our expert with Insight Software, Kevin Gibson. Looking forward to discussing trends for this year. You may have seen our blog post, the top 5 trends impacting finance teams, but we are going to focus specifically on cloud adoption, cybersecurity, and data privacy, as well as process automation. From there, Kevin is going to give us a quick demo where you can see a reporting solution in action, and then we'll wrap up with some concluding thoughts and Q&A. All right, I will hand it over now to our speakers to introduce themselves.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for the introduction there. My name is Paul Barnhurst, the FP&A Guy, and I'm super excited to be here and have the opportunity to present again with Kevin. I presented with him before and just really excited to be here. Over to you, Kevin.
And I'm Kevin Gibson. I am a senior solutions engineer here at Insight Software. I am a CPA, a finance individual. I worked with Paul in the past. Looking forward to the great conversation we're going to have today. And absolutely thank you all for joining the call.
Great. So why don't we go ahead and get started here? As we mentioned, this webinar is going to be about some of the trends for 2024, how we navigate them and automation. So Insight Software did an article where they identified 5 trends for 2024 that impact finance as whole. So not just FP&A. First is generative AI. No big surprise, right? Nobody's surprised that's number 1. Number 2, we have ESG, our environmental, social governance, right? And how corporations manage all that. How does that impact finance? Then we have 3 that we're going to focus on in most of this presentation, where we're going to spend the majority of our time. First, cloud adoption. Cloud has exploded, right? If you have a subscription service and it's a software, odds are that company's using the cloud. And just think how many more subscription services you have today than you did 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Kevin, do you have any?
Oh gosh, personally, like if you think about all of them, you have Netflix, you have Amazon Prime, and then those at its simplest level. But ultimately in the finance space, gosh, I've got to think that by the end, in the next 5 years, I've got to think almost everyone will have some form of a cloud product out there. Now, everybody may not be on the cloud product as they transition them over.
Sure.
But even just this morning, Paul, in full transparency, I was talking to a customer who had 2 instances of cloud information, and they were struggling to try to get it out. Obviously, we'll talk more about that with the process automation and whatnot. But when moving to those different areas, a lot of considerations. Obviously, why we're here, we're going to talk about those. But gosh, in our space, I'm going to say that I bet you 50% of who we're talking to now is cloud platform based, if you will. Mm-hmm. And the others just haven't moved yet. They're hesitant, and for various reasons, which we'll discuss.
Yeah, no, great. I'm not surprised at all you had the conversation today, right? So when we go from cloud adoption to cybersecurity, there's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of concern with cloud and security and data privacy and all the new laws. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we'll wrap it up with really what I'd say is a benefit across all of these and something we need to be more efficient. And that's process automation. So as you can see here, we have the last 3 highlighted because that's where we're going to spend the majority of the time. But I just want to share one quick example on generative AI, right? We hear a lot about that. And just this week, I had this super complex formula I had to write in Excel. And I shouldn't say super complex, but it was really long. It was an indirect. They always have complex syntax. And I was like, okay, it's going to take me forever to get all my little pieces in the right order, right? When you write code. I'm like, why don't I just use ChatGPT for this? And so, instead of spending 45, 50 minutes, I spent, something much less than that, letting generative AI do the hard work. So those are examples of the type of things that are coming. And so I just kind of share that to remind people, don't sleep on that. Not the focus for today, but definitely a real trend. So anything from those 5, you mentioned a little on cloud adoption, anything else jump out to you, Kevin?
Again, I know it's not the focus, but the generative AI piece is something that I think we're all figuring out where it goes, where does it fit in. We've already adopted some of that, just be it a small piece. We're using it in our help features with our products today. It's a
Mhm.
great, quick way to search on some things. Not a lot of risk there, not a lot of complexity to it, but ultimately it's the start of something that's much bigger than even you and I probably can comprehend or even understand at this point. But ultimately, yes, the generative AI is a hot topic. I believe our conversations in the future will be more around that than the others that we've picked today, just because it's so new. It's so new to the market. Companies are adopting it. Some are fast, some are slow, just as we have, just a little bit. Let's see what it does, and then we'll expand it from there.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's coming and it's exciting. All right, so let's jump into the first of the three we really want to talk about, cloud. You mentioned earlier the 50%, and what's interesting when it comes to cloud is just a few stats we're going to start with. But before I do that, what you're going to notice, and I used it throughout the deck to kind of have fun with this generative AI theme. On a lot of these slides, you're going to see I created the image using Dolly. So I asked it a question around the slide and put in the image just so you can kind of see and think, wow, all the different things you can use it for. So cloud, 60% of corporate data is stored in the cloud, right? The majority of it is already there. The other thing that jumped out to me is 3/4 of companies are using both public and private cloud. So that's a lot of coordination cost, different, basically hybrid approaches. The third one that jumps out, by 2024, anticipating, and that we're in 2024, so this year, over $1 trillion of spend globally, right? That's a huge number. And the reality is cost is a big factor of even going faster on the adoption. It can get really expensive if you're not careful. And then the other big factor is security, right? People are concerned in the cloud. They don't have the same level of control, even though it may be more secure, right? Microsoft is going to do a lot to secure its data and spend a lot more than a small company can, right? If you have something in the cloud with Microsoft, doesn't mean it's totally safe, but there definitely is a lot being done there. So that's a little bit of what we're seeing in the growth. Kevin talked about that. So then let's talk a little bit about just cloud spend, because as finance and FP&A professionals, we need to understand that spend and ensure it's being utilized appropriately, that it's not being wasted. Studies show 30% of cloud spend is wasted. So let's just take a minute. We're going to do a simple math exercise. If I have $1 million, what's 30%, Kevin? You're a math guy.
300,000.
All right, you pass. Good job. So let's take that 300,000, and depending on the role, that could be anywhere from one resource, depending on how much they're paid, fully burdened, up to maybe 5, right? Depending on the country, or more, depending on where you go. So think about that. Every year we're wasting at least a couple people's resources, probably on our cloud spend for most large companies. Quarter of the time we're over budget, right? And the amount we're spending is increasing rapidly despite all the waste. So I had the opportunity this year, actually last year now, it was 2023, to interview a guy by the name of Jeff Dursky, and he helps cloud customers understand their cloud spend for Amazon. So he's a resource where they can ask him all about it. He's a finance guy. And so a lot of what I'm going to share came from that interview and from reading some of his articles about how to think about cloud spend, because he's one of the experts out there. And the first thing he said, I really love this quote. You'll see it here on the screen. As a finance professional, the better you understand cloud, the better insights you're going to be able to drive. So we need to start understanding cloud. It's not enough to just know, hey, it's a line item on the P&L. And we'll talk more about that on the next slide, but we need to start understanding it. And the second one, 80% of companies say cloud is hard to manage, right? They're having challenges managing their spend. So they're wasting a lot. And they're acknowledging basically that they're wasting a lot, that it's hard to manage. So what can we do as finance professionals? Obviously, we're not going to solve all the problems, but we can help put rigor and help put processes in place that can help us manage that spend as we continue to increase the adoption. Because I'm going to let a secret out, Kevin. Cloud's not going away. In case you were wondering, it's here to stay. and it's only going to increase. The days of every company having big, huge server farms, CapEx expense is gone. What we've done is we've exchanged the fixed cost for a variable cost. And the challenge is now we have to manage that variable cost. There's some benefit of just saying I spend the $5 million up front and then I know roughly what it's going to cost me a month. Here it can change quite a bit with cloud. You're relying on somebody else. So what do we do? So there's 5 things I'm going to discuss here. And I'm going to run through these, and I'd love to get your thoughts on